this is Malcolm Robinson and you're listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network, the UK's biggest paranormal network, and this is Paranormal Dimensions with David Young.
Hello, thank you Malcolm for that fine intro. And Malcolm was a guest a few shows ago. I think it was probably the second show. Yeah, I've started on. I've got a few little recordings of people saying welcome to the show. So hopefully that'll be a little thing we can get on with. Right, I've got now. I did actually start giving people a call out, a shout out on the show. If you would like a shout out, give me a message on my Paranormal Dimensions page, or send me a message. But I'm going to give a call out today to Mike James Gorman in Wigan, UK. I've got Donnie Brooke of Macon, Georgia, USA. There's a Mick Sayer of Kings Lynn, Norfolk, UK. And I'm going to give a hello to Irene Allen. She's the CEO of Paranormal Radio UK. So hello, Irene, and you're in London, UK, I believe. Andy Mercer, who's given me a lot of help on this show. He does a lot of the editing and things on the show. I believe he's in London. And I'm going to give the final hello today is Cookie Stringfellow, New York State, USA. Right, now, today's show is, you may recall on the last show I had Philip Kinsella on. Well, this today is Ronald Kinsella, Philip's twin brother. Believe it or not, they were both born on the same day. And now Philip and Ronald have done an awful lot of work together, but Ronald, they've kind of got separate paths in interest, but they do collude on certain things. They've got a Twin Souls show also on this network that they have. But anyway, I'll waste no more time. I'll introduce you to Ronald Kinsella. Hello, Ronald.
Hello, David.
Hello. Lovely to speak to you, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very honoured to be on it.
Well, I'm honoured to have you on, as I was Philip.
Yes, he told me that he was on. So I think the subject of the paranormal and things that are beyond our own science is fascinating. And as we were just saying earlier, weren't we? We were saying that we try for the truth with it.
Yes.
But I've had a number of experiences myself, David. If you'd like me to start off.
Oh yes, absolutely. Please. I was going to say which direction do you want to take this, and really just go for it. Yeah.
Well, as you were saying, you're quite right. Yes, Philip and I, we have separate projects, although we do collude on certain things together, which is that's actually beautifully put. When I was younger, certainly, I was frightened of the world. I was frightened of the teachers because, as you know yourself, David, in the 70s, I mean, for Philip and myself, the schools were terrifically well disciplined. I mean, they still had the cane in effect and all that. So we not only did we have to mind our P's and Q's, we had to adhere to the rules of society. And I believe I was a very good pupil, albeit I was very lazy. And this was when I was about 8.5. I was frightened of the world, frightened of people. I was terrified of the teacher we had. Now, I've made reference to her in a new book I'm writing. I've fortunate enough to have a contract with the wonderful Philip Mantle with Flying Disc Press. I signed a contract with Philip.
I was going to bring that up, but as soon as you've mentioned it, go ahead.
Yeah, because it's all part and parcel of it. It's autobiographical as well as talking about the reptilians. But referring to this particular teacher, when you're subjected to this sort of thing as a kid, you'd think it's the norm, but it wasn't. No. Because this teacher, I will describe her to give a picture. She was about, and I'm not being negative or wacky with it, I'm going to just say as it is. She was about 57 years old, very, very astute lady. She was northern. I won't give her name, that would not be fair, although I think sadly she would have passed. I won't wish that upon her. But I'll call her Miss Butcher as a pseudonym. But I'm working on this teacher, and now I had her for a year in every subject, as you yourself would recall. In school you had a tutor for more or less all your lessons. Is that right, David?
My school, I mean, I left school in '65, to be honest. But
Yeah.
yeah, we did have various teachers. I went to a boys' school for a couple of years, and that was actually a nightmare in my secondary years. And I wanted to pass the 13 plus, believe it or not, to get out of that boys' school so I could go to a technical school. But that's another story. This is not my show. This is yours. So
Oh, blimey. We've all had our horrors, haven't we?
yeah, we have. I've had some horrors, but I know exactly what you're saying about the corporal punishment and the cane and everything like that.
Yes. But this school was in Luton. It was Danner Road Junior School, and it was quite beautiful. It was Victorian, and the classrooms were set out on the edges, and the hall was in the centre, so it made it very dark while you were inside. The lights were always on, which made it somewhat cosy. And I was always looking out in Miss Butcher's class. I was always looking out at the park. They got a big park opposite, and I was just daydreaming, but this teacher gave me hell. Just to give you an idea of my character before I go into the UFOs, but I wasn't even bothered with English or maths. I was frightened of everything. But I remember distinctly this particular, she had it in for me big time, and this goes on and on. This is a year of punishment. We had a spelling lesson, and I hadn't bothered to learn these words, and I thought, my God, is this what life amounts to? Learning your spelling or doing your maths? It's hard enough. Wondering what you're going to do when you leave school. But so I cheated. What I did was, she called out each word, and we wrote down what they were supposed to be spelled like, and then she called out the spelling. And she came round to the class. She said, "So how many of you got, Ronald? What did you get?" I said, "I've got." Well, I never got more than 3 or 2, but I said, I've got 16, Miss Butcher. That's very good. Who marked your paper? I said, well, I couldn't lie. There was no one next to me to swap it with. I said, I did. Bring it up here. Do you know, David, I've never forgotten that memory. I had to walk up there. I didn't get a good hiding, but she said, "Class, we have a cheat. You will stand with your nose pressed against the blackboard. Yeah. I'll see you later." So I stood there, and I was reflecting on everything, especially the punishment I get from a certain person, at home, not my mother. But, and I probably rightly deserved it, but I had to write each word out 500 times, and now that was understandable. But then we had a competition, a story competition. She knew my grammar was terrible, and I was so excited. So I was going to write this story about Doctor Who and the Daleks. It was something I came up with, and I was excited. I thought, pick me, and she did. The day came when she picked this piece of paper out and started reading, and then she got faster and faster and faster, and then slammed the paper down on the table in front of me before all the pupils, and said, and this is exactly what she said, "Where's your spelling? Where's your full stops? Where's your bloody grammar?" Oh dear. And I realised, yes, this was constant with me and her. Miss Butcher, I mean, the final time I saw her, there's a lot more in this book about her, but this is reflecting my character. The final insult was when I left school, went to high school, which was a blessing. The teachers were wonderful there. I have to say, Stockport High School then was absolutely wonderful. Love the teachers. But when I had been released from prison, I went back to see her because my sister was under her, and she did a play, and I just happened to see Miss Butcher, and she just came up to me out of the blue. "How are you doing?" I said, "Yes, I'm fine, thank you, Miss Butcher." "So, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And I'll never forget this line. It's funny, isn't it, David? The things you don't forget.
Yeah.
"Really? If it's anything to go by your punctuation, you have my sympathy," because I told her about to be a writer. So that ended that sour note. Now, when this horror had finished, a new horror began, because it's when I started seeing the UFOs. Now, I had seen something when I was a child, but I won't go into that. I don't really want to go into that, but it's, I'm writing about it anyway. There was something I saw. I can't be absolutely certain what it was, but this was certain. It was when I was 13, it was 1982, and we used to stay with our grandparents in Felton, Tatchbrook, Middlesex. They had a lovely house. It was a 3-storey house, quite big. And we used to stay there, Philip and I, on summer holidays. And our grandma was psychic. But of course, then it wasn't really mentioned. You didn't talk about mediums or UFOs. You just didn't do it, David.
No.
As you understand, you couldn't tell your teachers, you couldn't tell your father.
Not unless you want to
couldn't
get a
tell
label. I know what you mean. Yeah, like the crazy one. Yeah.
anyone. But my grandma was hanging out, in a nutshell, my grandma was hanging out washing. And we were with her. And, of course, I had no interest in UFOs. I didn't even believe in the mediums. And I'm ashamed to say one of them, I used to take the mickey out of her. And all of a sudden, this orb came over the garden. Now, at first, we thought it was a balloon. But as a 13-year-old, I'd been extremely inquisitive. I damn well knew that was not a balloon, and Philip knew as well. It came right over in a controlled manner. It arced over. It arced over the garden, and then it stopped above Grandma's head. Now, this thing was like a silver ball. It looked heavy. It looked like it was made of titanium or something of that nature. It's about the size of a football, a regular football, and it just, because it was quite breezy that day, it came over in a controlled manner and then just hung over Grandma's head. Well, we were gobsmacked. Now, we looked up at it, and David, it was there for some time. It was hovering for about 3 or 4 minutes at the most, I would think. It's hard when you look back, but I don't colour things. I'll get it straight. It wasn't a balloon. There was no cord. There was no seams. It was just absolutely solid. And it just hung. It did not move an inch. And I knew, when Philip and I knew, we pointed up and said, Grandma, look. And she said, she was so calm, we couldn't believe it. She said, oh, look. The fairies have come to take a closer look at us. Now, I knew she was trying to keep us calm. She always used this fairy, this fairies down the garden told her to cover up her mediumship. The fairies whispered things to her, you see. But she was psychic. She knew things. She was amazing. But we weren't really interested in it then at all. It was just hearsay. But she must have seen these things before. It didn't faze her at all. She didn't faze her. And then it moved in a controlled manner after about 4 minutes. It moved towards the house and it stopped before the windows, and then it started moving up, but it was having a good look in the windows. As it moved off, this was like really weird, and this was technology. I knew it was technology. And as it went to the roof of the house, and then it went over. Well, we dashed in and ran to the other side of the house, and we could see it increasing speed in a controlled manner in a direct line, faster and faster. It zipped down this old dirt lane and disappeared. That was it. It was as peculiar, it was otherworldly, it was very bizarre. Now, that was not military. I knew, even people have tried to label it as a balloon, as a atmospheric distortion. No, it was a clear day, just breezy. It wasn't military, because the military wouldn't have developed anti-gravity mechanisms. They're not of that integrity. They wouldn't have done it. And even if they had, they wouldn't even bother spying on a grandma with the 2 grandsons. They just wouldn't bother doing it, They just wouldn't be interested. So the incident, strangely, was slightly not forgotten, but we've never forgotten it, never. And I remembered at the time looking at it. I remembered, my God, look at it. It was technology, David, but albeit not our technology.
It fascinates me because almost word for word, it's almost the same as the story that Philip said on the last show, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's almost the same. Well, it's just about. It really is the same description. What puzzles me is why there was no reaction to it from your grandmother.
No. She just said the fairies had come to take a closer look. She'd evidently seen these things before. It was clear she had seen them before. I don't know what they were, but they weren't from our world.
Well,
they were other worlds.
We do hear these stories, or we've seen videos and things of little like balls coming out of the UFO. They seem to be like probes that go around, don't they? I wonder if it could be something like that, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely, David. Absolutely. I've called it an electronic eye because when it was there, I had the distinct impression it was watching us. It was looking. So it could be their version of an eye or something, or a camera. So it evidently is. But this is leading up to the calm before the storm, because that Christmas, something happened to me at home. And it takes a long time to realise that you connect the dots, as David Icke lovingly says. You don't connect the dots, you can't, until it's happened and it's gone. The incident has happened. But the worst was yet to come, because I had actually seen the people of this thing, or I believe of them, who were spying on us. Because in the winter of 1982, I was taken by them. Now, it sounds very matter-of-factly to say it that way, and it's like, oh, I'm an abductee. I'm not. I must make it quite clear. I am not an abductee. This incident did happen. It wasn't sleep paralysis. I have never forgotten it because it scarred me for life. I've seen the doctors, is what I call them. Only once. I have not seen the doctors again, but every 2 or 3 years after that, we see the UFOs. I will tell you what happened, if that's okay.
Absolutely,
regarding
yeah,
the
please.
doctors. It was in Luton, up Hazelbury Crescent. I love that road. They're all Victorian houses, big old rooms. Philip and I shared a room, and it was big. It was really big. I mean, it's a beautifully spacious house. I mean, God, of course, the Victorian houses weren't they? They were certainly built so vast. But it was one night. I can't remember exactly what night, because as I've just written on here, I've just made a comment on here. It begins within a weekday and of when Grandad was at work. This is to do with the orb. I said, I don't think you'll raise an eyebrow as this relatively undocumented account, that the particulars are certainly not vague. Children simply don't record events such as this. I had no interest in documentation or diaries. And you won't, you're a kid, Yeah. But it happened in 1982 after the session with the orb, and it's what they showed me afterwards that scarred me for life. I've never forgotten it. I was taken from my bed one night. I was taken up, I went through the roof, David. I just went through the whole house. I couldn't believe it. So I had no knowledge of UFOs, had no interest in them, especially even after the orb. It's weird because it's like an ethereal paradox. You just seem to just accept it after a while and just move on, but it didn't stop. So I was taken through the roof of this house, and I could see something very dark in the sky. It was darker than the sky. I think the sky must have been evidently bluish or dark blue, but it was black. I couldn't discern the shape, but there was something hanging there. Well, I must have passed out. The next minute I know I'm obviously in it. Evidently, logically, I'm in it, because I'm seated in this wheelchair. And this wheelchair is white. It's very modern. It's not like our wheelchairs. I knew it was a wheelchair, but very, very modern. And I was in this room. It looked like an operating theatre. I'll put it that way. It didn't look intimidating. I mean, they had a table there. I cannot remember the particulars of the room. I can't. But what I do remember is the table, and I remember the 3 doctors standing before me and one behind me. Now, I call them doctors. I don't know what they were. I'll tell you what, they weren't people. They were taller than people, and they were clad from head to toe in a uniform. It was like a radiation outfit, but it was more modern. Even their eyes were, you couldn't see them. There were visors. It was just all completely clad, even their hands, they wore gloves. And they were obviously startled because as I woke up, I found I couldn't really turn to look at the person behind me. I knew there was someone behind me. There was someone definitely behind me. I couldn't turn enough to see him, but he spoke. And I gather he was in charge because he was the one who did all the talking. He said, the first thing he said was quite incredible. He said, we're going to perform an operation on you, Ronald. Now, when he said my name, David, I felt absolute chills run down my spine.
And this was obviously in an English language, or was it just, you think, implanted into your head that there?
That's a good point. Good point. I cannot say. I can't answer that. It was English, and it sounded like an authoritative male, English. I would say perhaps middle-aged. I don't know. But the words came clean and crisp, and I never saw any mouths to move. I don't know how it was done, but I just heard this. And the voice was really assuring, but it was the suggestion of the operation. And I don't know why. I just knew it was to do with the head. I remembered pleading with him. I couldn't turn to look. I couldn't see him. I couldn't turn. I don't know why. I just couldn't move to see him. I said, no, I implore you. I don't want this operation, please. And he said, no, it is for your own good. And he did say, I remembered him stating quite clearly, I'm going to promise you one thing. We will not harm you. Now, I knew he wouldn't. They weren't unkind, but they were an authority, and they were going to do what they were going to do. And as I said, this was not a dream. I was there. And he produced, I saw his left hand. It was gloved. And I couldn't really, David, I don't know how many digits he had on his hand. I wasn't looking at that. I was looking at what he had in it. I wish that if someone could take me back, I'd happily do it. I'd merrily do it. I'd take a lie detector test, anything. I'll do it. I'll go back. With regression. I want to see what that was all about.
Yeah.
But he produced this rod with this nodule on the end, and he pressed it on the palm of my hand very gently, and when he did, I went out. Now, evidently we move ahead. Now, they must have done their operation because I was dropping from the damn thing. I was dropping very fast. And I can't remember much about it, although I was terrified I was actually falling from the thing. I was on my own, but I was going back into the house, and I was buzzing. I felt this real electric charge pulsing all over me. My hair felt electric. It felt electric. And as I was dropping, I could see the roof of the loft as I was coming through, and then I could see the bed. And as I was reaching the bed, I felt the little bump. And that's absolutely horrendous, because I knew damn well it was happening. You know, that's your confirmation. I could feel my back. They laid me on my back on the bed, so I could feel the sheets in the bed and the little bump. And then they did the worst thing imaginable. And ironic, this thing was more horrific than the doctors themselves. I call them doctors. I don't know what they were, but they weren't people. They projected, and this was a hologram. When you're 13 years old, you're a kid, you're very, very, very focused. You know what you're looking at. You know, you don't have any nonsense. Kids are wonderful at that. They can give you an exact description of something. You know, if they see something, they'll give you an exact description, because they're not tainted with colourful fancies at the time. They may see them, but they don't do it. And I saw this massive, it was the head, not the body, the head, this huge holographic head, and it was hard because it was wavering. It was wavering like a hologram, like it was in water. It was a hologram of a huge Cheshire cat, and it was grinning. And this Cheshire cat wasn't like the one from Alice in Wonderland. This was the penultimate, the ultimate horror. This was an absolute nightmare. All its teeth were showing. It was grinning, and they kept it there for ages. He was wavering and wavering. Then he went. Now, it all ended. That was it. Kaput. All done. But after that, every 2 or 3 years, Philip and I have seen the UFOs. Now, I kept questioning, David, why on earth would they show me something so damn bizarre as that? Why did they do it? Why did they do it? And that was, ironically, if they'd left it at that, it may not have made such an impact. But I think it was their undoing. And I know why they did it. It took me years to figure out why they did that. In fact, I mean, I was only 30 now, I'm 50 now. So it was only a couple of years ago it tweaked. I know what they did. And they were very smart. Because I had evidently disturbed them through their operation, you know, before they were going to do it, what they said they were going to do. I can't be sure what they did, but they did something. Because I interrupted them, perhaps they felt that when they put me back down, they thought, we're going to sort this out. We've got to do something, because they evidently know us very well. So they plucked something out of my head. A few years prior to that, I'd seen Alice in Wonderland. I wasn't really interested in Alice in Wonderland. No disrespect to the wonderful, brilliant Lewis Carroll, but I just wasn't really interested. But I suppose they picked it out and projected that, because when I go and see a psychologist, I say, well, they showed me the Cheshire Cat. Oh, hang on a minute. The psychologist, wait a minute. What, you've been down the rabbit hole. You're getting confused. You're getting confused with Alice in Wonderland. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
You see, very, very smart.
Yeah.
Very clever. And I haven't seen, since then, I've never seen the doctors again. I've never seen them. They, as I said, they weren't unkind. But what happened after that at school, I don't know how long. I can't remember how long. It wasn't long afterwards. I had a fit. And it was to do with the head, because I was clutching my head at these 3 incredible pains in geography.
Wow, yeah.
And they were so bad, I clutched my head and just collapsed. And I fell onto a pupil, who then pushed me off him. And I went onto the floor. And Philip said he was there. I was fitting for a few minutes. And they pulled me out. And I've never fitted in my life, David, ever since.
That's scary,
this
isn't
is
it? Yeah.
After they'd done this. This is after they'd done this. But of course, I didn't connect the dots. I couldn't. How can you? Until later in life, you think, my God, is it connected? I can't be sure. But it seems damn odd, doesn't it? And whether they did good or bad, I mean, Andrew Chaplin, he attended a session. As I said, I've only just recently come out and spoken about this. It's taken a lot of guts, you know, because people do. Your work colleagues, I mean, my goodness, when I go to work, I think, what do they think of me? They must think I'm nuts. Yeah. But I'm not going to let it lie. I have to get this out to people, you know, because if they've had encounters or things that have occurred in their life, it may just ease their own situation. But yes, I had the fit, and yes. And after that, they asked me if I wanted to go and see a doctor. I was terrified of doctors. I said, no, because it's to do with the head. I didn't want them going in there. Now, they were very good. The school were very good. At Stockwood High School, they were lovely. I loved most of the teachers there. after the dragon we had. They were wonderful. They sent me home, and I think I had the rest of the week off. But I had a banging headache, but I recovered all right. And as I said, I have never seen them again, but I have seen the UFOs. So this later on in life, it was much later when, like yourself, David, there was some burning desire to get this out to people. I didn't know how to do it or which way to do it, but it was just to get this out there to them, and as I said, I had recently an interview on YouTube where I was filmed talking about this, and it's the first time I've ever done it. It's the first time I've ever, I think it was last year or the year before I did it, I actually speak out about it. And you get the most vilest comments from people who sit, one of them, and I'm going to say it, I don't mind, I've got nothing to hide. He said, are the Archons as camp as Ronald Kinsella? And I'm not camp at all. And another one was, what a pair of lying old queens. Now, I'd like to make it known quite aptly put. I have never lied in my life. The only time I lied was when I cheated a spelling. Thank God that I paid for that. But you see the comments. These
people are just nasty. I think that's all they've got in life is to be nasty to other people. They've probably got no skills of their own anyway. And there's probably jealousy in the end that something's not happened to them. I think that's the only thing I can put it down to.
Yes, I mean, my goodness, I wouldn't wish that to happen to them.
No.
But they don't know me. They don't know me at all.
Of course not.
And they attack my character and my own self. You see, in life, we all have our own paths. We're all unique. We're important. And the thing is, it depends on what road you've taken with people. Mine wasn't too brilliant with certain people, and I will say that loosely. So when you get older, you're a bit more wary of people, not yourselves, or because we're good friends, David, but you know what I mean, other people. When they come in and they, you're a little bit wary because you don't know how they're going to take you. And I damn well know a lot of people because of these UFO experiences. I know they're laughing behind my back, but it as I said, it takes a lot to come out with this, and then you get this.
As I say, all these people are anyway. They're just like the old school bullies. But when you actually confront them with something, they're usually the biggest cowards of the lot.
That's quite true. I've seen it happen. I think Tommy Robinson, is that his name? Who did it to one? He confronted this troll who was bullying him or said something, and I think it was he went to him and confronted him, and he was weak.
I've had exactly the same experience myself at school. When you actually confront someone, when you tell them you've had enough of it, I was very easygoing at school, but one day I just broke. I just cracked, and I really confronted this bully that had always been at it, and things changed. He almost became my best friend.
Wow, isn't it strange?
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yes, it is. But this led on this incident with the doctors, which was quite a long time ago. As I said, I've never seen them again, and I would, if I could get a good regressor, someone who could regress you professionally. I wish Bud Hopkins
I think you really should try and do that. I mean, that sounds fascinating. Do you think they may have put an implant in your head, or?
I cannot say, David, but it's funny, isn't it, that after that, every 2 or 3 years, and I didn't know about implant. I didn't know even about the Roswell incident then. I didn't know about Rendlesham. I didn't know anything about anything. I wasn't really interested in UFOs. Not really then. I mean, we hear of them, but I don't know. It's quite possible. I have no idea. I mean, the fit I had in class, could it be that they did it and something went wrong? Or were they correcting a problem that they foresaw a time and it would happen? I don't know. But this led me into the interesting topic of UFOs, especially about the reptilians we hear about as much as the greys. But I'm going to tell you this, David, I have to laugh at this. Through this interest of this topic, I remembered reading some books, I won't give the names of the authors, that would be unfair, where they were depicting these Nordic types as being ever so friendly, and they're concerned about peace on Earth, and they want everything, they're concerned about nuclear warfare or atomic warfare, then the flying saucers that landed, and something just didn't add up. When I was reading these, I kept thinking, something just didn't add up. Now, there was a case of a ship, which I believe happened, that it approached a military base, and it was able to successfully disarm temporarily some of the nuclear weapons and then flit off. They've been doing this on and off.
Oh yeah.
Well, I said to Philip, could this be rather like an illusion? Not physically, but they're giving us the impression that they're concerned, and sometimes they knock out a few silos and say, there we are, we're giving an example.
Yeah,
All they need to
As I say, sorry, just as a demonstration of what they can do. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, not at all. I mean, but the point being is, if they were so concerned, they won't even need to contact us. If they were so concerned about the safety of our world and the planet as a whole, they've demonstrated their power quite aptly. They could just simply go along and do every single silo, wipe them out.
Yeah.
We build more of the weapons. They wipe them out again until we think, all right, we've got a slap on the hand. We can't. This pointless making nuclear weapons. They haven't. And they won't, David. That's the point I'm trying to raise. Certainly not from what we're seeing. There is no good that has come from them at all. You know, they're going on about these people, and I'm not denouncing any author. I'm not denouncing any book. This is my own opinion, and I'm entitled to it.
Oh.
I have not seen one good come from them, not one good. Nothing, absolutely nothing. They could have the cure for cancer. They could have the cure for many diseases. We have received nothing. They could wipe out all the nuclear weapons or nullify them. They haven't done it. It's like a game of cat and mouse, and they are rather like shadows. They seem to hide in the shadows. They don't want to be seen, and yet they do. It's like when they put you under, like me, for example. Evidently, they can't successfully anesthetize us. I mean, I find that very strange for an advanced race that they can't entirely do it, because sometimes we always wake up. It's as if we're meant to wake up to see snippets of them. I don't know what it's all about. It's like a big, nasty game. But you know, that's my views on it. You know, certainly about you know, when I was reading about a certain abductee, that was taken by them, and he was whipped off to planets, and they were all concerned. After a while, no, this is something wrong here. Perhaps it did happen to him, but it's an illusion. They're giving him this illusion of care, just as because we now know that the aliens are able to change their faces. I mean, first they're goblins and fairies, then they're Nordics, you know, and then we have the Greys. What's it to be next?
Yeah.
What's the next phase?
Well, it's like shape-shifting, I presume you're raising the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, they can bring dead relatives aboard ships. You read of these where they bring dead people aboard to see the adoptee, just to make them a bit calmer. I don't think that made me calm. I think that absolutely scared me to death.
And of course, we may not be, like I said before, we may not be talking about extraterrestrials here. We could be talking about interdimensional beings of some sort.
That is a very good point, and I'm not, you know, David, it's funny, isn't it? The more I look into this subject, the more I'm inclined to believe you're absolutely right that they are not from outer space, rather they are from inner space, albeit a dimension, interdimensional, yes. And I don't think we call them aliens. We have to label things, categorize things with names. That's understandable. Absolutely, we need to categorize things. I don't think they're aliens. I think there's something else.
I mean, of course, I do believe aliens are out there. I mean, we'd be stupid to think we're the only ones, but it doesn't mean that all these occurrences that we get are from extraterrestrial races. They could well be, interdimensional. Most of them, anyway.
I absolutely concur. I absolutely agree with you, David. Absolutely, I believe in life on other planets, of course. I mean, this is absolutely. I believe there are, but what we're dealing with at the moment is a menace that even the military can't control. You know, they seem to whip out into the skies and then disappear again and elude them.
Yeah.
You know, and I do believe the Roswell ship going to the most famous case of them all. I actually do believe something. Alien crash there, and I do believe that they captured hardware or physical.
I do too. I agree with you.
Yeah, along with bodies as well. I absolutely believe that in that, because there's no smoke or without fire, and you know they actually reported, didn't they? They actually said that they've captured.
They did, and then they tried to put the thumb on it and stop, and retract it all, which when it was all out of the bag already. You know, I mean, obviously that was a military nuclear, well, not so much nuclear, but atomic base at that time. They wouldn't be releasing a story like that out of stupidity, would they? You know, and then trying to put the cat back in the bag again. It's
they made up some excuse that it was a module balloon.
I know.
My goodness, the pieces they have hundreds of people there to clean up a module balloon that children can find lying around. No, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, they were. I mean, the people living in the area were quite used to seeing those balloons anyway, so they knew what they looked like. Especially Mac Brazel, who found that one on his ranch. He knew what they looked like because he'd found them before. But he says this was nothing like he'd seen before.
That's right. I mean, you raised an interesting point, David, with the sphere we saw. You said, could they be coming from these ships? That's a very good point, because I did think about the Foo Fighters. I mean, during the Second World War, they were heavily documented by pilots tailing the planes or swishing around, observing the war. There again, they didn't intervene with the war; they just watched.
They did.
So this thing could be like one of those things. It's just not moving as fast as they were. You know, it's not illuminated.
I'm actually reading a book at the moment about a lot of the food fighters and actually UFOs in wartime. It's actually quite very interesting, and there's a lot more reports that I wasn't even aware of. It seems to be quite a commonplace thing with a lot when during wartime that these things were seen flying around, more than were actually reported. In other books that I've seen. You know,
yes, that's right. I mean, as I said, they've done nothing to help. Now, you get some people who write that it is against their law to intervene. You know, these people seem to know their rules and regulations. It's against their. But if there's a nuclear blast, they'll intervene. But they didn't. They didn't with the atomic bomb testing. They could have stopped it, but they didn't. There was one incident I know they did. There was a rocket that took off, and one of them was sped round it and quickly fired a bolt of light, and then it destroyed it. I don't know what that's all about. That probably is another a case of, let's just show our concern. But certainly, from my point of view, I'm rather confused at the fact as why they've done absolutely nothing. I mean, I know they can't land on the lawns of the White House. I know they can't arrive in their ships because, let's be honest, there will be absolute anarchy. I mean, you just have to look at our own government and people, what we do when we just cast a simple vote. The absolute horror and absolute lies we have to go through with that. So my God, what would happen if they arrived? And I don't think the ones that are visiting us at present would. I think they're much darker. I think these greys are not all what they appear to be. I mean, there might be factions which are good. You get the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, we spoke to the wonderful Kathleen Marden, who is the niece of Betty and Barney Hill.
Yes.
She's the niece, and she's absolutely smashing. And she came up with a very interesting point, especially about the Roswell ship, that it could be possible. Is it possible that the pilots are engineered, they're biologically made to suit that environment, hence the ship. That was a very interesting thing.
Yeah, that's an interesting hypothesis. I agree with you.
And if so, who made them?
Yeah.
And if you're so advanced, you could just sit back and build these clone people and send them out, and they'd act as their eyes and their ears and have a look round. They sniff round, We have to consider many different things. I mean, this will make you laugh. I had one chap, as I said, I won't mention names, it's not fair, and I wouldn't do it anyway, but this chap, he seemed to have the entire alien agenda all in place. He was basically telling me, he wrote to me about that I had got my theories wrong about them, that they were, and he gave this list that was, oh my God, it was never ending about what they planned to do. And I thought, where'd you get this from? And he told me it was from some general, high-class general. Well, of course, they can say anything, because as soon as the general denounces it, it becomes a conspiracy. It's lost in this web of, no one can prove it. So I thought, no, this is absolute rubbish. The aliens absolutely categorically would not state their agenda to us, and if they did, it would be an absolute fabrication. They would lead us off the trail. They're not going to tell us what they're up to. They're not going to tell us what they do. And this is another point I'd like to raise about the hybridization program I read so much about. Now, I'm not criticizing it. I don't know. I'm not educated in it entirely. I mean, perhaps some of them are scientists experimenting with people as we would with lab rats. But the point I can't understand is some of them going on about the Greys making a new race for their own empire or their own kingdom or whatever. And I thought that's absolutely rubbish. What's the point in that? There's no point in it. It doesn't make any logical sense. They wouldn't move away from what they are. It's like us if we're dying out and we develop a new breed of people. Let's say, I won't say they're cavemen, but they're Victorian in nature. Victorian. Let's say we're of the 25th century and they're Victorian people. We'll be putting our genes into them. What's the point? They're never going to be the hosts. They're not going to be that. They're just going to be completely a separate species doing their own things. That didn't make sense to me. There's something more sinister behind that, I think, David. Something very more
sinister. I get your point there, I agree.
I don't understand that at all, And then we move on to the the triangular ships. Now, I have seen only one once, and it's ironic because an author I'm friends with, a wonderful author, Andrew Johnson. He's written these books.
I thought you were going to say Philip Kinsella then.
This author, he was, and I hadn't seen one.
I know Andrew. I'm trying to get him on the show soon. Actually, Andrew. Yeah.
He's a lovely, very well educated man.
Yeah.
Absolutely, he like yourself. He doesn't have any nonsense. He wants the truth out there, and he was showing me these images of these triangular ships, and they were very flat and sharply cornered, and he was basically they're military built. And I said, well, no, perhaps not all of them. Well, he agreed on that point. And well, my God, I was to see one myself. I have catalogued. I think I have No, I didn't catalogue that one because I've seen so many of them every 2 or 3 years. This is what I'm putting in Philip Mantle's book. Every account, what I've seen. And what I see, David, is not just pinpricks of light. They are full scale. Whenever I see them, they're absolutely full scale. This triangular ship I saw, it was in August. I do remember it was August. I don't know if it was the 11th of August. I may have actually written it down. I can't remember. But it was 11th or 12th, and the sun was at 7 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun was, the direction of the house, it was quite bright. And this huge thing casually passed overhead. Now, it was quite low. I mean, it was massive. I could see even the corners and the detail on the side of it. And it was a triangle. It was a black triangle. The corners weren't sharp, though. They were rounded, extremely beautifully rounded. And the actual mass of it was thick-set. I mean, it wasn't thin. It was really thick-set. I imagine you could get 15 decks on it. I mean, it was gigantic, and it was so big, and it just gracefully passed above the house. It moved forward, and I couldn't see any rockets. There were no engines. There was no sound. There was nothing. It wasn't a drone. It was gigantic. It looked like the silver orb that we saw, the sphere, the electronic eye, I call it. It looked heavy, really heavy. It looked like it was made of cast iron, black cast iron or something. It looked really heavy, but it was just flying effortlessly into the distance. And as I was watching it, now I had a choice. Now I could have grabbed my mobile phone. I wished I had. Now I wished I'd filmed it, but I was frightened of losing it. And as I was watching it, I noticed that where the sun was reflecting on the side, it had these lovely grooves along the side of it, like machine groven. But the belly of it, underneath the belly, I could see the belly. There were no girders or lights. It had no lights on it. Nothing was on the thing. It was just all black, and I suppose that's attributed to it being daylight. I suppose these people who report them, who I do believe that they report them mainly at night, isn't it? But they see the lights on, they obviously activate them. These things on them. But no, it was quite. Although it was extremely bizarre, it was quite. There was a certain beauty about it. I remembered thinking at the time as I was watching it, how the hell can it just hang there? How can it just hang there? It was, David, it was gigantic. To gauge the actual size, it was probably the size of 2 football field pitches.
Yeah, it sounds very much like the Phoenix one, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I never saw it again. It was just, and I kept thinking, why isn't anyone up? Why can't they see it? Why can't they see it? When these things happen, and I do believe they happen to a lot of people, when these things happen, I think the wonderful British ufologist who is to read all her books, Jenny Randalls, she coined the phrase the Oz factor. This kicks in. It's like it's unreal, but it's real. There's one thing I did notice, one interesting detail I did notice when this craft passed over the head, and it didn't look military to me, David. That looked like it was perhaps hundreds of years ahead of technology. I'm not discrediting the incredible progress the military have made. I mean, there's no doubt that they have developed some kind of craft that can perhaps levitate anti-gravity. I'm not knocking them, but not on this scale, not this size.
No.
And even if they had, there is a valid point. They would not be broadcast themselves across. They wouldn't be flying them.
No, it wouldn't make sense, would it? Because thousands of people would be seeing them like that. Yeah,
of course, that's right. They just wouldn't do it. It's not. That would not be their tactic. They're too smart for that. But one interesting detail I did note is that we have a lot of birds around where we are, and August, yeah, they're everywhere, they're flying around. When it passed, there was not one bird anywhere.
Oh.
Now, isn't that strange?
That is strange, yeah.
Not one bird. I didn't feel any vibration from it. I didn't feel anything from the thing. It just seemed to casually move, and it was like shiny black tar, thick set. The corners were rounded. I was a complete, oh my goodness, when you look at that. And I did have a damn good look at it. As I said, I had the choice of getting my phone, but I was frightened to lose detail. And people say that's a cop-out. It wasn't. I wish now I had got it. I wished I had, because it was there for a bit longer than I thought. But you don't know if it's going to zip off, if it's going to disappear. You've got no idea. But I wanted to see the thing for what it really was. And that is alien technology or otherworldly technology.
Well, you're not the only one that's made those same descriptions. That's what interests me. I've heard that type of description from several other people. Another couple of friends of mine also. I think Darren Cooper had a very similar experience to what you're describing.
Wow. You know, that's, but Philip and I have seen a lot more. I would say every 2 or 3 years. Now, the last ones we saw were 3 of them. I think they put them on YouTube. Someone had uploaded them. Someone else captured them. Thank God. And they've filmed them and they've analysed them, and they're not aircraft at all. But that was 2016, so it's every 2 or 3 years now. So I've seen nothing yet. And as I said with the doctors, I've never seen them again. That was very, very bizarre. But I would be happy to be regressed to see if they could take me back to that time. It's funny, isn't it? Because I was regressed once by a medium after all this. I mean, our beloved grandmother, she passed away. She passed away, and I went to see a medium. And even after all that, I denounced the mediums, thinking, because Philip came back from seeing her, and I was laughing, saying, "Oh, you know, I was ignorant, David, ignorant." I kept saying, you know, crystal ball and gypsy woman, you know, crossing my palm with silver and all that. I said, what a load of rubbish. When he came back from her, the first thing I noticed, it was damn strong, he stank of youth dew. And I said to him, was the medium wearing any perfume? No, she wasn't wearing perfume. Well, my grandma always wore youth dew, Estee Lauder's youth dew. She was swamped in it. She loved it. Yeah. So I made an appointment to see her, and it developed into a friendship afterwards.
That's fascinating, yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking about, so you're not actually clairvoyant yourself, are you? Or do you, I mean,
no.
I know Philip is, isn't he?
No, I'm afraid I'm not. I make no claim to that. No. When I saw this medium, she was incredible. Her name was Pearl. She was incredible. Very young, very attractive woman. She was incredible. She didn't even look at me. I gave a false name, by the way. She didn't even bother. I didn't faze her. She just looked at the wall, and it all came through. Right. And what she came through with, I was gobsmacked. It wasn't this wishy-washy nonsense they put on TV, like, is anybody there? No, this was accurate, detailed, to the point where a family member drowned. We had no knowledge of it, and yet our mother knew who it was. It was the person. She said we had no. So she's not even mind reading either, because if you're not armed with the knowledge, how could she know? But she did pass self-regression afterwards with me, and that's the only time I was regressed afterwards. After this reading, after I confirmed that I thought, yeah, you know, she's absolutely spot on. She came round and did pass self-regression. Well, I saw 4 past lives, but I didn't see what she, because she said Philip and I were once sisters on Atlantis. I thought of Hinge and Bracket. Yeah. That didn't come through.
Probably for American friends out there, they might not know who they are, but
no. 2 gentlemen dressed up as ladies, and they had their own show, Hinge and Bracket.
They'll be sitting there saying, huh? Who's that?
Yes, they used to speak like this. Should we have tea? It was 2 old ladies, you know. They portrayed them, for our American friends, they portrayed them as these comical 2 village life cake-eating, eccentric ladies. They were very fun. I've got the set, actually. We've got the box set. They were very popular, I think, in the 70s, weren't they? I think it was 70s.
Probably a bit like the Golden Girls, only British.
Oh, I love that. That's great. That's a great. But in terms of the aliens, I do believe them. Yeah, I believe in them. Yeah, they are here amongst us. They certainly are. I like that line. That was from The Invaders. They are here amongst us. What they are, we don't know. We can't say. And I think it's wonderful, attributed to all of our UFO researchers, who are absolutely wonderful people. I liken it to a jigsaw puzzle. they're trying to put pieces together to form a coherent picture.
Or most of them are. I'm afraid that there's a few that go a little bit overboard and try to start exaggerating things, which then kind of throws all of their previous work in the dustbin.
Absolutely.
I'm afraid. Yeah,
yes, that's the danger of becoming stardom. They see it like I've seen some. I won't give names. Some top one particular woman presenter who I think, I'm not going to be unkind here, but I think she's what's the word shall I use? A social media climber.
Yeah. And I do know who you're talking about.
yes, and you have to be careful, because I've noticed when people come out with new theories, good folk on your radio stations or other people on other radio stations, she seems to suck up the information like a sponge and present it herself as if it's new data and it's come from her.
Exactly, yeah. And so she has the answers to everything, basically, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yes, and I think and watching this woman on TV and YouTube and that, I think she's got a hell of a lot of them wrong. This is the ironic thing about it, especially about the crop circles and things like that. She seems to have an answer for everything.
Which is a shame, because her early research into might as well talk about it, cattle mutilations and everything like that was actually very, very good, and it still stands up. But unfortunately, it's just gone too far. When you get the answers to everything that's going on, unfortunately, it just sort of ruins everything else, you know.
Yes. But as you said, no, I'm not psychic like Philip, but my intuition always kicks in. It's like about this woman.
Yeah.
The getting back to the psychic ability. No, I couldn't raise the skin of a rice pudding.
Although I think we've all got it in us, like we were saying before, like with Philip and that. But I think a lot of us just don't develop it, do we?
No,
we all get this funny feeling about someone, or when you walk into a room, you feel an atmosphere. You know.
I agree with that. Yes, but I do bring it through differently. I bring it through, I think, with my art. I love drawing, and I bring
it's fantastic.
Through...
Some of your artwork.
Oh, well,
in fact, when I put this show, the show goes out in a few weeks, I'll actually put some of your artwork on the Paranormal Dimensions page, if that's okay. And
of course, you use whatever you want, David. That's fine. But and also with the writing. But like you said, David, yes, you're right. All of us. We all have this. It's whether we wish it to remain dormant or not. I think some people it slightly works. Other people, they work on it, which is brilliant to really develop the skill. It's like the wonderful Frank Willis. He has an ability. I mean, when he did that, when he broke all those concrete slabs, using not only the power of his fist, which cannot possibly do it, that's impossible, but his mind.
Yeah. He does. He puts his mind into it. That's what I was trying to. I asked him the question about does he know that's going on within his mind? Is it something that's, I don't know. Does he understand what it is that's happening? you know.
I mean, he's been in the Guinness Book of Records, so he's got an accomplished gentleman, and I absolutely love the guy. I think, and when he talks the truth. And I was fascinated about the reptilian he saw, the shapeshifter, he saw it, and if Frank says he saw it, he saw it.
Yeah. Oh, he wouldn't. Yeah, he wouldn't lie. That's right. It's he's not that. Amazing. He's not that type of guy. You know.
No. But yes, you know his accounts. I mean, you know, I'm just grateful that we have people like yourself, David, and Frank, and we have all the others, the good people on our side who are just trying to find out what these things are. And I don't think we're going to get the answer anytime soon.
No,
I think this picture's not even half built yet on this puzzle.
No, I think you're right. I doubt if I'll ever see it in my lifetime.
No, I don't think I will in my lifetime either. But one thing we have confirmed, it's ancient. It has been here for a long time.
Yeah.
It's able to change shape, as Paul Sinclair, I mean, the wonderful Paul Sinclair, has done a lot of research into it as well, up in Benton, where him and the wonderful film producer Christopher Turner, wonderful people, and also Bob Brown. They've been up there investigating these things, and I mean, Chris Turner did a wonderful documentary on Don't Mention the Reptilians.
He did, yes, I've got it actually. Yeah, it's very good.
And Elusive. He did one called Elusive, about the Bigfoot and the. But he's bringing a new. I think he's bringing a new one out, isn't he? Bringing Down the Light.
Yes, there is something new coming out. I think there's. I think he and Paul were working on something, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I love all that, and I just think, like you said, David, you have the inner knowing about people. You have that feeling that you're drawn to, like you're drawn to, we're drawn to each other. I think that's beautiful. It's like
well,
you know.
I've made mistakes. We've all had trust broken at some point.
Yeah.
I think
I
think the trouble is with, if you're like me, I'm a very trusting person. I do trust people a lot, even if I might have a funny feeling about them at first, but then.
Yeah.
But once that trust is broken, they'll, well, you know how I feel about that.
Yes, I do indeed. I know what you mean. It's like it's just the way it is, isn't it? But the doctors, as I said, referring to them, they weren't, as I must make it quite clear, they weren't horrible to me. They were very concerned, but they were very, very. The three ahead of me never spoke. They were just standing there. The three ahead of me, they just stood there. I couldn't see their faces. They just stood there. But he behind me, I never saw him. He was the one in charge. But he was extremely polite. His voice was polite. As I said, I don't know if he communicated it through lips or whether it was through mind. I never saw him or could see anything on them to answer that. But he was polite. But he was an authority that was going to do what they were going to do. They weren't going to have any nonsense. And they were very gentle. I mean, they didn't, even when he took my hand, he was very gentle and pressed the nodule on it. It was very gentle, But the thing they showed afterwards, I mean, I might be wrong, but it's the only logical answer I can come up with why they showed me that horror. And interesting enough, I've never ever illustrated this cat, but I'm going to illustrate it for this book for Philip Mantle. This book. About the aliens, the reptilians, and all that. But I'm going to do an actual picture of it, as I could never recapture what I saw, David. I couldn't do that. I could never recapture the horror of what I saw because that cat scarred me for life. I've never forgotten his face. I can see it, but trying to actually replicate it is going to be difficult. But I'm going to give it my best shot for this book as well.
Yeah, I should be looking forward to that.
Yeah, it was wavering. It was, and if I remember correctly, it was bluish. It was blue, electric bluish, or not so bright as electric blue, but it was like an electric bluish. I don't know if it had, I can't remember if it had colour in it. I cannot remember, but it was certainly bluish. And I could see the teeth. Very clever. I mean, if we had technology like that now, my goodness, you could make a fortune. Especially that absolutely perfect, especially projecting it out. I mean, they can do it with VR now. They're very clever with these virtual reality systems. We even have to wear the screen on your head. You need some kind of receptor for it, but they could just project it on the ceiling of the wall. And he was 3D. It was like he was really there. Do you see what I mean? It was like his head was really there. And that is the only thing that horrified me about them. Was ironically not them themselves, but the cat.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Anyway, unfortunately, we've got about a minute left, so I think we just have to wind up. And have you got planned over the next? Have you got anything important planned, or?
Well, I'm going to hopefully meet you at the conference.
Oh yes,
David.
yeah, we'll be seeing you there. Yeah, that's the Colonel Holt conference, and
yes, but you're coming down with your wife, aren't you?
We're coming down to see Philip. Yep,
I'm looking so forward to that, David.
Yeah, I am too, and yeah, I mean, really, I for anyone listening out there, Philip and Ronald have their own Twin Souls site, which is on this network as well, which you should always give a listen to. I'll put a link to it on my page, and. Unfortunately, we've got to leave it there. And it's been fascinating talking to Ronald again.
Thank you.
You really are twin souls, you and Philip. I can see exactly why you call yourselves that now.
Tweedledum and Tweedledee, David.
No, you're both gentlemen, and I'm really proud to know you. I really am, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you soon. Anyway, everyone, I'm sorry I've got to say goodbye to you now, and that's it. I've got to wind it up. Thank you again, Ronald, and see you soon.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.